This is BBC Television.
That was the week that was. It's over, let it go. We had a lot this week, and we've nothing left to wait for but total snow. The Chancellor says, now hold on to your head, but they'd rather have a job to hold on to instead. Unemployment is starting a drift to the south. They're coming to London from Leeds and from Louth. The north may be dirty, deserted and bleak, but have they thought of how our London's been looking this week?
A smoggy day in London town. 5 smoggy days have got me down.
The Roman Church has authorized vernacular translation, for this is the age of mass communication. Jackie Kennedy's plastered on physique magazines. Shall we have Lady Dorothy in sweater and jeans? The Queen saves the guards from a terrible flight. They won't have to stand out in their bearskins all night.
The official reason for changing the guards to peak-capped is that it's done in the interests of security.
Why change the guard at Buckingham Palace? Christopher Robin kept asking Alice. It's all because of security. At last the poor dears will be able to see. Says Alice.
The Roman Church may be bringing its mass up to date, but here, Lord Montgomery has announced that it's time we had a go at our hymns.
Oh God, our help in ages past, remember we implore. If we poor humans are the last, you'll have to make some more. Teach thou our neighbors us to love as we do love ourselves, and make the fallout from above fall out on someone else.
That was the week that was. It's over, let it go. Oh, what a week that was. That was the week that was.
Lovers of South Africa will be disappointed tomorrow morning. The 3 heavy Sunday papers will not have another instalment of those delightful conversations between 2 wonderfully reasonable people, which have been appearing regularly in advertisements paid for by South Africa House. I've got some here. They're wonderful, sort of guardedly violent questions from one person, followed by wonderfully understanding answers from the other, all terribly reasonable. Any admirer of the quick parry and thrust will miss this kind of stuff paid for by South Africa House. So we've brought together those 2 fine debaters again to continue this lively, controversial discussion.
Aren't there a lot more black people than white ones in South Africa, and so shouldn't they perhaps run the country?
Well, of course there are. That's precisely the point. You see, there are so many more of them that they have less need to say as much as the few white people.
Yes, I see. How silly of me. But even so, wouldn't they like the chance?
There you go again with your silly old European ideas. No, you see, in a new civilization like ours, we just can't afford to leave things to chance.
No, of course not. But it seems to some people that you leave very little to chance. What with house arrest and barbed wire around the native villages?
This is just the kind of things our critics are always saying. Dear me. In Africa, you see, words like house have quite a different meaning. Quite different. Until recently, the Bantus didn't even have houses, didn't even know the word. So as you can see, house arrest gives people a sort of prestige. It's like a status symbol, really. I mean, you mentioned barbed wire around the villages, too, didn't you? Well, that's just the sort of distraction which journalists are always putting up, too. I mean, I can imagine a Bantu coming to London and thinking all houses with railings in front of them were prisons. If, of course, the Bantus were allowed to come to London.
I'm so glad you cleared that up for me. You don't think, then, that black people are inferior to white people, do you?
Of course not. If we did, do you think we'd go to all this trouble to suppress them? It's been announced this week that illegitimate babies in London are no longer 1 in 10. They're 1 in 8. And that is not a decrease, it's in fact an increase, which is very sad, and doesn't it almost mean that they should have a lullaby all to themselves?
It must have been last April that it happened. I was dating Sid and Fred and Ted and Lou. But before the summer ended, I was visibly distended. I know why, and so do you. Conceived you may have been in sordid passion, but baby, you've arrived, and you're in fashion. Don't you weep, my little baby, 'cause you haven't got a dad. Go to sleep, my little baby, things aren't really quite so bad. There's no reason any longer why you ought to feel so blue. The world is full of bastards just like you. Don't you cry, my little baby, though it seems a crying shame that you'll die, my little baby, never knowing what's your name. Having started on life's ladder, there's no telling where you'll stop. Lots of nature's children reach the top. For example, good King Arthur, likewise gallant Sir Gawain, not to mention both the Borgias, not to mention Charlemagne. And there's William the Conqueror and T.E. Lawrence too, and Adolf Hitler's father was a bastard through and through. 400,000 kiddies, just as innocent as you, were left behind by soldiers at the end of World War II. And now 1 in every 8 of London's baby population has a mother who's a mother like your mother. So smile your Mona Lisa smile, my dear miscalculation. Which reminds me, Leonardo was another. Learn to laugh, my little baby. It won't always be a slur. For the graph, my little baby, shows there's more of you each year. And so by the time you've grown up and there's hair upon your chest, why then you lot will outnumber all the rest. Papa was no bridegroom, and your mama was no bride. Yet sleep away, my angel baby. Time is on your side.
The Vassal case is, of course, sub judice. Though we can reveal, incidentally, that here is a white paper similar to the type which it is believed may be issued by the government as a result of the tribunal. What has been fascinating, though, has been the press treatment of the various letters involved in the case.
One changed the international image of the sex life of the British, another changed the letter-writing habits of a nation of civil servants, where Mr Galbraith declared that never again would he use the words dear or my dear to begin a letter.
Right, well, give it here, would you? Yes, thank
Here we
you.
are, sir.
Thank you. Now, let me see. To Mr. Jenkins, good. None of that dear nonsense, I see. Pursuant to your letter. Pursuant?
It's the usual phrase, sir.
Yes, well, I don't like it, I'm afraid. The word has an erotic penumbra. You take it out, you see.
Yes, sir.
I'm hoping for the favor of an early reply. Favor?
Well, the Oxford Dictionary defines the verb favour as to look kindly upon, sir.
Yes, exactly. I'm amazed you can be so naive. Looking kindly upon anyone who earns less than you do is a deeply treacherous procedure.
Yes, sir.
You really are innocent, aren't you?
I'm afraid I'm a little, sir.
Yes, we must change all that. Now, let me see. Hoping for the favor of an early reply, thanking you in anticipation. Are you doing this on purpose?
What, sir?
Thanking you in anticipation. There, look in black and white.
Is that wrong, sir?
Wrong? It's just about the most sexually provocative sentence I've ever read. It fair whinnies with suggestiveness, boy.
I hadn't intended it quite like that, sir.
Yes, well, not concerned with your intentions, thank you very much. Really with the effect you create. Now, understand this. In the civil service, you will never think of anybody for anything. Especially in anticipation. You will simply end your letter without innuendo of any kind. Now, let's see what you've done. Yours faithfully. I don't believe it.
That's normal, sir.
Normal in the context of a man writing to a man is something less than disgusting. It implies you may be unfaithful, you see.
Why, I never thought of that.
Yes, well, you think very little, don't you? Let's see. Even the word yours at the end of the letter is dangerous. It suggests a willingness to surrender.
Well, then what can I say, sir?
Well, what do the pensions department use? I mean, they're about as unemotional as you can get without actually being dead.
Well, your obedient servant, I think, sir.
Are you mad? Signing yourself as an obedient servant is an ipso facto confession of sexual deviation. And that, as we all know, is an ipso facto confession of treason.
Oh, I say, sir.
Yes, what do you say? I believe you're one of those cranks who believe there are loyal homosexuals. I think you secretly believe that the way to stop homosexuals being blackmailed into subversive acts is to change the law so that they can't be.
Well, it had crossed my mind, sir.
Sloppy left-wing sentimentality, that's what that is. Now, you take this pornographic muck out of here, do you understand? And you bring it back in an hour, clean enough to be read by a 6-year-old girl. And leave out everything at the end except your name. A bare signature, brusque and masculine, see?
Yes, sir.
What is your name, by the way?
Fairy, sir.
Yes, well, I don't think you'll last very long in Her Majesty's service. Good morning.
The film West Side Story still continues to collect awards all over the place, but we hear too little of one of the songs, The Lovely Maria, for my money.
Maria, 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 I've just met a girl named Maria.
It's no good, I don't like the name.
And now our next scene turns to an ordinary house in an ordinary street with an ordinary room.
Good evening, sir. Just a routine inquiry, sir.
And now we present a tribute to Norrie Paramore. Norrie Paramore, age 48. For 10 years, artist and repertoire manager of Columbia Records. The man who not only chooses the singer, but also chooses a song. What more natural in such a position of power that he should so often choose one of his own? Take like Shane Fenton's Cindy's Birthday, Craig Douglas' Time, or Helen Shapiro's Little Miss Lonely and You Don't Know. And there, on the back, you'll find the songs of Norrie. Rarely played, and yet, nice touch this, receiving half the royalties. On the back of Cindy's Birthday, he wrote this. How fortunate that Norrie has this power, for without it, songs like that would surely never have reached the public ear. For Norrie's is essentially a slender talent, small, even weak, in the words of his personal publicity man.
On leaving school, Norrie set his heart on a music career, much to the disgust of his parents, who urged him to find employment in a bank or some other solid institution.
Now, it's very easy to pick holes in Norrie Paramore. All too easy. For example, Helen Shapiro had 4 enormous hits, each one, or many of them, with a Paramore song on the B-side. Then genial Norrie promoted himself to the A-side, wrote Let's Talk About Love, and Helen failed to get into the top 10 for the only time in her career. All right.
Every artist must be given a fair crack of the whip. That's how stars are born.
LPs, too, are in Norrie's power. On the back of his album, Emotions, we find the comment,
Not only will a musical theme oblige as such, but it can also become the perfect soporific for an emotional quiz.
Norrie's proud of his workmanship. Rather like the manufacturer of some new soap powder, he doesn't like any of his products to leave the factory without his name on them. Somewhere. With his LP, The Wonderful Waltz, he had quite a problem. It was certainly soporific, all right, but where among 12 of the most famous waltzes of all time could the name of Arthur Paramore appear? On the sleeve we read,
The opening track, Irving Berlin's Always, and the last waltz on the second side, Romberg's Will You Remember, are both separated by a charming melodic fragment of Norrie's own composition.
Best of all, perhaps, is Norrie's clarity, his musical shorthand. We hear Norrie has written a tune called Hawaii. We know all the well-known sounds of Hawaii. We know Norrie will use them. We know what to expect. And then, joy of joys, simple, isn't it? Something we can all respond to, automatically. Very Russian, in a sense. Many of our best English composers have been influenced by Russians, and Norrie's no exception. Edward Elgar by Tchaikovsky, Benjamin Britten by Shostakovich, Norrie Paramore too by Pavlov. But with any situation, Norrie can act rather like a brave bomb disposal expert and take out the fuse, take out all the messy unpredictability, the risk and the excitement.
The things that matter most of all, someday my darling will recall. Each memory will never fade away, for we'll have a lot to tell the children, a lot to tell the children someday.
What's the best word to describe that, do you think? Ordinary, wasn't it? But basically, Norrie is an ordinary man, writing ordinary tunes with ordinary words. For during the past 10 years, Norrie Paramore has used all his power and all his influence and made everything ordinary.
Good evening and welcome to Sketch Club. Tonight, how to draw a political cartoon. Now the first thing we need is a subject. We'll take something simple like the Prime Minister wooing in vain his country's respect. It could happen. Now what we need over here is the Prime Minister with his well-known moustache, drooping eyelid, kneeling down, I think. Over there, one knee up in the air, with his hand on his heart, poor man. Right, over here we want his country spurning him in the shape of a rather buxom young lady with her arm out and with long golden hair, I think. Like so. Give her another foot, poor woman. Right, now we need a pillar to support her underneath. Like that. But we must make it quite clear to the out-of-town reader who the lady is by the use of this simple device. Here. Right. Now, a little grass along the bottom of the drawing there. And you've got your cartoon. What, you ask yourselves, could be simpler, but it doesn't end here. You see, the artist only provides the idea. The really creative work is done by the editor. Now, let's see what you've got here, Timothy. Who's this meant to be? Macmillan? Doesn't look like Macmillan to me. Write his name on him, man, otherwise we'll miss the whole point, won't we? Yeah, M.A.C. Mac. That's better. And who's this woman meant to be? The British voter? Well, we don't know that, do we? British voter. Right, that's better. Looking like a cartoon now. This pillar's a bit meaningless, though. We'll have to do something about that. Now, let's see. What year are we in? 1962. 1962. Right. Now, Macmillan, he's under a cloud, isn't he? Then, for God's sake, say so. And why is he under a cloud? Because of the decline of the Tory image. Decline of Tory image. Bit of rain. That's a lot better, but you've left out the dove of peace. Good Lord, man, leave out the dove of peace and they'll think we've gone war crazy. There we are. The dove of peace. And the olive branch. Oh, I think you've got a good cartoon there. I'll get someone else to draw it and you can go home. This is how it's done. Next week, an address from an editor. I may not know anything about humour, but I've always wanted to be a cartoonist.
From drawing pictures to writing songs, that is the style of meaninglessly one looks for, I think. A whole new method of songwriting is in fact springing up. The jazz instrumentalist starts the ball rolling, and a brilliant soloist like Wardle Gray, Lester Young, or Lucky Thompson produces a memorable improvisation on a piece of music. A melodic line that allegedly twists and turns and produces exciting and intriguing sounds. Then the lyric writer, or sometimes the singer, fits tongue-twisting words to a tune that contains for them more inspiration and more surprises than 100 pop songs. Stephen Vinever has done this for us to a Wardle Gray recording, and Millicent Martin will sing it.
Take a little time when you feel it coming down to the ground. And if you chomp on a chocolate, pop down and rock a bit, there's nobody will make you cry like a hound. Take a little time to do the things you ought to do. Start on a few. Come on, chomp on a chocolate, pop down and rock a bit, nobody be blue. Taking it upon yourself to keep your wits about you. Fiddle about you will find the work is on without you. Now, not yesterday. Begin now or you'll be in a mess today. Take a little time when you find your point of view. Here's what to do. You gotta chomp on a chocolate, pop down and rock a bit, nobody be blue. Baby, I've been around, I can see you got the life there never will be. Anyone take it from a lady who can tell you really swell. I'm in the dough, so if you wanna go, I'm ready and able. Bring for a table, getting ready for an out of the town. No time to fiddle about. Baby, what'll we be doing while the band is playing sentimental for the people to hear? Hold my hand while we're sitting at a wine or rosy beer, and your eyes are kind of saying I love you. That'll be oh so terrific. You and me and Joy, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Baby, you and I could really start it going. Keep the incident slow and we'll be taking our time. Coming down to the ground. down. And if you jump on the chocolate, pop down and rock a bit, there's nobody will make you frown like a hound. Take a little time to do the things you ought to do. Start on a few. Come on, jump on the chocolate, pop down and rock a bit, and nobody be blue. Taking it upon yourself to keep your wits about you. Fiddle about and you will find the world goes on without you. Now, not yesterday. Begin now or you'll be in a mess today. Take a little time when you find your point of view. Here's what to do. You gotta jump on the chocolate, pop down and rock a bit, nobody be blue.
On Tuesday, the Daily Herald had this story. A terrified stag cowered in an icy stream, hunted to a standstill by riders and hounds. But the hounds did not kill it. They were called off and the stag was rescued to be hunted another day. Said Brian Gooch, master of the Norwich Staghounds, I'm sure the deer enjoy the hunt just as much as we do. Well, yes, and I'm sure Colonel Gooch would enjoy it too. If you would like to chase him into an icy stream, write to this address. Colonel Brian Gooch, The Hall, Woodbridge, Suffolk. No, but seriously, Brian, you're doing a wonderful job.
I've just met a girl named Maria.
I've gone off it again.
Tomorrow, some of us will be turning to Old Moore's Almanac to see what 1963 holds in store. But there's one soothsayer who is obliged with predictions every week, crossbencher, political columnist, Sunday Express. Each Sunday he forecasts future political developments. So let's wander down memory lane and see how some of Crossbencher's predictions during 1962 turned out. He has a keen eye for trends inside the Labour Party.
A powerful body of Labour MPs is convinced that as deputy leader, Mr Brown is a liability. The candidate they would like could be Mr Harold Wilson, but that cautious chap will have nothing to do with them.
Harold Wilson stands as candidate for the Labour deputy leadership.
Mr Wilson will be certain to defeat Mr Brown.
Brown defeats Wilson by 30 votes.
Crossbencher knows just how the voting will go in by-elections.
At Lincoln, the Liberal intervention could easily have the effect of putting Labour out and the Tory in.
Labour wins at Lincoln, majority up 3,000.
But it's in detecting shifts inside the cabinet that his ear is closest to the ground.
July the 1st. Cluster round now, all you hopeful Tory backbenchers. I bring the news you so anxiously await. It concerns the big government reshuffle which everyone has been expecting this month. And what is my news? There won't be one.
July 13th, Macmillan carries out big government reshuffle.
Mr Macmillan has decided that as long as the pay pause stays, so must all the ministers responsible for that policy. Which means not only Mr Selwyn Lloyd...
Selwyn Lloyd sacked.
But Sir David Eccles...
Sir David Eccles sacked.
And Mr John Hare...
John Hare not sacked.
And while Mr Harold Wilkinson is attacked by the opposition over defence, he too is as safe as a pheasant in the close season.
Watkinson sacked.
Even Mr Maclay, Secretary for Scotland, is secure.
Maclay sacked.
In the past two programmes, Bernard Levin has launched his invective against two big groups of people, scientists and PROs. Tonight, he's confining his attention to one big man, Mr Charles Forte. Mr Forte heads a vast chain of restaurants and hotels which cover the country. A good man, then, to speak up for British food and British beds. And Mr Levin, as a travelling man, has had fairly nightmarish experiences of both.
If there's one word to describe the British hotel and restaurant industry, and there is, that word is disgusting. There are other words that might be pressed into service in an emergency: lazy, inefficient, dishonest, dirty, complacent, exorbitant, but disgusting just about sums up. It sums up what? Well, to begin with, sums up the attitude of the average British hotelier, which is roughly that he's in a business, that the rules of business therefore operate as they would in any other business, and it doesn't make the slightest difference to him whether he's running a hotel or restaurant, manufacturing bootlaces, or selling insurance. In other words, he has no pride in his great craft, he has no feeling for service, and he has no genuine wish to house the traveller or feed the hungry. And if we complain, we are told, falsely, that the Catering Wages Act has made it impossible for hotels and restaurants to retain sufficient staff to ensure that the customer can have a meal when he wants it. Now, apart from the fact that the Catering Wages Act was only passed because the industry was too mean and unscrupulous to pay decent money, it may come as a shock to many hoteliers and restaurateurs in this country to learn that it should not be beneath their dignity to put on an apron and cook and serve a meal themselves. It may further come as a shock to them to discover that if visitors have children or dogs or even both, it is their simple duty to cater for these by no means exotic beasts, rather than display signs announcing that the hotel resolutely declines to cater for either. It may even come as a shock, to go to the other end of the scale, to many British hoteliers and restaurateurs to discover that they could make mayonnaise quite simply with egg yolks and olive oil, rather than providing bottled salad cream which tastes and is probably made of little but boot polish. It may indeed come as a general shock to their smugness to discover that the reputation that Britain has abroad as providing the worst public food in the world is almost entirely justified and almost entirely their fault. What is it?
Allowed to say anything?
In a moment, as much as you wish, Mr. Forte, in a moment, as much as you wish. Why is it, and you will tell me in a moment, no doubt, that the great traditional hospitality of mine host, with his pride in good food, is almost entirely dead? Why is it that in a city the size and importance of Manchester, say, there is not a single hotel that I could recommend to a foreigner without blushing? Why is the restaurant food in Glasgow served cold? Why is the catering at London Airport a major national disgrace? To me, the thing is summed up, the incivility, the discomfort, the inefficiency, the general nastiness, in an episode from a Dartmouth hotel, where the proprietor asked if he would be so extremely obliging as to provide breakfast the following morning at 8:15. At 8:15, mind, replied with the indignant and immortal cry, "You're not on the continent now, sir." But very shortly afterwards, I was. All yours, Mr. Forte.
Mr. Levin, I think you must have been travelling third class everywhere and choosing the most impossible spots to stay at and eat at. I'm perfectly convinced that British catering is on a par with any other catering in the world.
All third class and impossible travellers?
Is the audience briefed for this?
No.
Now, let me tell you this, Mr. Levin. If we change the catering in this country to continental catering, you'd be the first one to protest. Life here is different. Our system of life is different. People, I'm sure you will.
I don't ask you to change it to continental catering. I'm perfectly willing to have simple, decently cooked, inexpensive or expensive, depending on my pocket, English food. You won't provide that.
But surely we do.
You see, the clue to your attitude is summed up in your very first remark when you accused me of travelling everywhere third class. Supposing I do travel everywhere third class, and many people can only afford to travel third class, why should they not have, at their price level, food as good and warm and promptly and efficiently and friendlily served in decent, clean surroundings as anybody with a lot of money who can go and stay at the best hotels and buy the best food? What's wrong with a third-class traveller?
Excuse me, Mr. Levin, most of the caterers in Britain supply that type of food at reasonable prices.
Come,
at too reasonable prices.
Come, Mr. Forte. We would like them to.
Most of the larger catering companies cater to the public and cater to the public with limited means. And they do it very well. Where on the continent could you find a similar type of catering at the price provided for in this country? Where? Just tell me.
Come to France with me, Mr. Forte. Come to Austria, come to Germany, come to Belgium, come to Holland.
Germany and Holland.
What about the relais routier, the lorry drivers, pull-up? We've written in the British pull-up for lorry drivers, Mr. Forte.
I have.
You probably run some.
I have.
Do you eat in them?
I've eaten...
you look surprisingly well in the circumstances.
I've eaten very well. Where can they provide bacon and eggs as we do in this country? Where?
Well, Mr. Forte,
in the Rue Moulin?
Terribly sorry to have to tell you, Mr. Forte, I ate your bacon and eggs at lunch today. And the bacon tasted of nothing but salt, and I had to ask 3 times for a glass of wine, and the plate was cracked.
Yes, but you're not talking of my bakery.
Yes, I am. Your restaurant had your name outside in letters that high.
Mr. Levin, I understood we were talking of the catering trade, not of my restaurant.
Yes, well, certainly, but you brought up the cakes, bacon, eggs, and I just happen to have them today.
I can assure you that...
The last time?
If you're talking of my restaurants, we increase our business consistently. So some customers must be very satisfied.
Well, but this is exactly what I'm complaining about. Because a lot of customers are satisfied, and I entirely agree, a lot of customers, perhaps the majority of customers, don't complain and are satisfied, you think that's sufficient.
No, but
have you no duty to provide higher standards, irrespective of whether people are banging on the counter and demanding them?
Mr. Levin, can we take this to the general level again?
By all means.
Right. Today in this country, there are 120 catering schools throughout the country. These schools are run by local educational authorities together with the Institute of Catering. These schools are training 15,000 young people today to cook. In a few years' time, I think we shall find that people will be coming to Britain for cooks instead of British people going to the continent to find.
Mr. Forte, either you are a very, very sanguine man, or you are something I wouldn't sully my lips with.
Apart from that,
I think you're a very sanguine man.
apart from this, we have in our trade an apprentice scheme, a 3-year scheme, a 4-year.
Oh, tell me, is that where you teach them to cook the roast beef in the morning, let it get cold, slice it thin on a machine, warm it up and serve it in the evening? I always want to know where that's taught.
I'm sure
It can't be intuitive, Mr. Forte.
we have nothing to blame. I'm not
Then what's
blaming
your
anything.
excuse for the conditions of your industry if you don't blame it on
But
anything?
you're presuming things. I say the conditions
I'm
are
presuming the evidence,
is
Mr. Forte,
very
of my
healthy.
stomach and my
But
experience
my dear
and my eyes.
fellow, look at all the people around here. They all look healthy. They can't go to France to eat every day. They eat
They eat in their home, Mr. Forte.
Thank you very much indeed, then, to, first of all, to Mr. Levin for conducting that heart-to-heart. And to Mr. Forte for submitting to Mr. Levin's own form of grill and griddle.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish you wouldn't do that.
What?
Eat mustard that way.
It's not mustard, it's ketchup.
There will be a mustard in a minute or the vinegar. Why don't you order something if you're hungry?
I'm not hungry. You've got foam on your lips.
I've got what?
Foam on your lips.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, from the coffee.
Oh. Here, Jimmy.
What?
Inch red close.
What for?
Inch red close, I want to whisper something.
You don't have to whisper.
No, I don't want no one to hear.
Nobody'll hear. Nobody's listening.
Well, I don't want to say it out loud.
Don't be dull.
No, I don't want to.
Come on, just say it out loud.
No, I don't want
Just
to.
say it out loud.
Your flies are open.
They're not.
They are.
How far?
What do you mean, how far?
How far's it open?
Well, it's more than halfway, zip it up.
I can't.
Why not?
It buttons.
Oh, well, then button it up.
Why did you tell me?
What?
Why did you tell me it was open?
Will you stop messing about with that ketchup and button your fly?
I don't want to.
Oh, Jimmy, for heaven's sake.
I'm very curious about your motives for telling my fly is open.
Well, I just
Strikes
thought
me
you
as
might
an
like...
aggressive and hostile action.
Hostile?
Obviously, I'm very embarrassed now.
Yeah, well, so am I. Batten it up.
That's what you want, isn't it? Don't eat the ketchup, button your fly. That's the way your tiny little mind works, isn't it? Well, I wouldn't button that fly if it was open all the way down.
It is now.
Well, maybe I like it open. Have you ever thought of that? No, you haven't thought of that. Why? Because you're so bleeding bourgeois.
Oh, well, if it's bourgeois to button your
It's
fly...
symptomatic.
Well, I'm sorry.
It's typical of your old way of life. No courage, no
I said
conviction.
I was sorry.
What do you believe in, eh? Go on, tell me, what do you believe in? Come on, tell me.
Oh, I don't know.
There we have it. The backbone of our civilization. Oh, I don't know. What about Cuba then, eh?
What?
Africa, Berlin. What are you doing about it? Nothing. Bleeding nothing. You know your answer to the whole world situation, don't you? Button your fly.
Oh, Jimmy.
Sickening. Everything's all right as long as we button our flipping flies.
Look, I'm sorry.
Who cares if the world blows up as long as our flies are buttoned? That's the way you think, isn't it? That's the way your tiny little mind
We
works.
are going to be late for the film.
Drop the bomb, but button your fly. That's the way your tiny little mind works, isn't it?
We are going to be late.
All right. Wait till I button me fly.
Here we have the slyly written Sunday newspapers for tomorrow again. Still not into the new year, but almost. And I see that Crossbencher, in fact, tomorrow, says here, shrewdly as ever, the truth about Hugh's health. Mr. Gateskill has nothing to worry about his health. Sorry, Hugh. Good night.
And there's more next week at 11:15 here on BBC Two.